Hey everybody, welcome back to the Kirby Triple Deluxe playthrough. In this part, oh look, it's a boss rush. Looks like we're playing Mega Man or something, or whatever. Yeah.
Or anything Capcom related.
Yeah, pretty much.
Konami, early Konami was fond of boss rushes too. Gradius, Jesus Christ.
Well,
And
that was an
gave us
arcade
synonymous
game,
with
and
boss.
they didn't want you to win without having to stuff 30 quarters into the machine, so, you know.
Screw you. That's why
Man.
I wait 30 years later.
Yeah, this is-
so I can play machines for free at cons.
This is entirely tangential, but I've seen advertisements for arcade machines aimed at the actual arcade owners. One of these was included in the bonus content for the Dungeons and Dragons arcade game, in fact. It was literally an advertisement bragging about how many quarters it would take.
Well, that's how you sold them, so.
Yeah.
Because
Aw,
if you think
man.
about it, an arcade machine's like, what, $1,000? Like, in order for it to even break even, you need to make sure that people are putting in at least 4,000 quarters.
You have to account for the electric bill, too. Those things, yeah, they chug energy.
They're a bit of an energy guzzler, yeah, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so...
I mean, but are there such things as arcade machines that has a little energy sticker in the bottom right to let you know that it conserves energy? Ooh, energy saver.
Well, I mean, if they've got arcade machines that tell you to not do drugs, I don't know, it's possible.
Yeah, but pay your bills.
I suppose it's not as, I don't know, like, glamorous of an educational thing. Like, you know, you want to teach your kids to brush their teeth and eat their vegetables, but, like, responsibly file your taxes on time. I don't know, it just doesn't...
Preferably brush your teeth with the vegetable. Save on time.
Don't do bills, pay your drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't stiff your dealers, kids. That ends to bad things most of the time.
Man.
Respect for one another.
I haven't seen a proper arcade since I was a kid going to the boardwalk. I think that's the only place that you're gonna really find them anymore.
Well, besides cons, but do you really count those?
No, I mean like an arcade, like
Like an
an
actual
established
arcade.
arcade. Like
Oh.
there. When I went to Colorado to visit Becca, there was an arcade, but it was divided into two rooms. One of them was a combination of just a bunch of tables with consoles and televisions on it that you could play while you were if you paid to be there, and one wall full of fan service anime stuff that really made me feel like I was at a convention.
Do things like Dave and Buster's count?
And the second room was a bunch of old arcade machines all set to free play mode.
I'd say Dave & Buster's is really the closest you're gonna get. I mean, Chuck E. Cheese still does exist, so I suppose there too, but, I mean...
Yeah, you know what? We should all go to Chuck E. Cheese.
I seriously
I'm
regret
sure that
not
won't
having.
raise any
I seriously
eyebrows.
regret not having spending money for the trip to that arcade. By the way, because they had a GameCom there, and I would have
what?
bought.
But John,
that
are we
just
going to go to
for the
Chuck E.
sake of
Cheese
having
to do that Jurassic Park Lost World ride arcade game?
I actually, at a Dave & Buster's once, I was actually able to play the Luigi's Mansion arcade game, and it wasn't nearly as cool. Well, the inside was cool, because, like, you were inside of a box, and there was, like, a plastic vacuum and whatever, and, like, it was cool and whatever, but the actual game itself was literally just an on-rails version of Dark Moon's first level. And I assume other levels, but we only played the first level, because it was really expensive to go into that thing. So we only played once.
Movie theaters also tend to have arcade cabinets of some sort.
Oh,
Well, like maybe like two or three at most these days.
yeah. There'll usually be like at a diner or something. There'll be an arcade cabinet, a single solitary arcade cabinet. Usually something horribly outdated. If you're lucky, it'll be
Or something like Solitaire.
If you're lucky, it'll be something cool and outdated, like Marvel vs. Capcom 2. But most of the time, it's like Mrs. Pac-Man or something.
Hey!
Hey, don't dismiss Pac-Man.
I will, I always like having the classics around.
Well,
If
yeah,
most-
but when every diner you go to has the same arcade cabinet in it, it gets a little boring.
you can usually count on one having, like, Donkey Kong or whatever. The ones that have Pac-Man and Galaga combined I always love that, because then I get to pick and choose which one I'm in the mood for, which is always... Don't play Galaga on anything other than the arcade or, well, I suppose some of the newer ports are better, but when the Virtual Console for the original Wii first came out, I was like, oh, Galaga, this is a fun game, and I bought the NES version of Galaga, and it is really, really boring, because it...
You got a PS3. You need to invest in the Namco Museum games.
I know that the newer Namco museums are fantastic. Like, they've got the original arcade versions and, like, the remixed versions. They have a subtitle. I don't remember what they are. But even, like, the ones as far back as, like, the PS2, I know are fantastic.
The PS1 games.
Yeah, but those are stupid hard to find.
They're super hard to find, but they're arcade-perfect ports, as far as I'm aware. That's how I was introduced to a lot of them.
Yeah, so I know that those are great. It's just, I was dumb and I was like, oh, this is Galaga, but the NES Galaga moves at a snail's pace, and it's really, really boring.
Cool. We managed to talk to the boss rush.
Yeah!
Excellent.
Fun fact, that boss rush theme is a remix from Kirby 64, and I think it's really...
one of the few times they actually like to remember that game exists.
Yeah. I mean, they tend to call back more towards... you know what? It's kind of weird. It feels kind of like the N64-ish era tends to get overlooked a lot in these sorts of things, because you got to remember that around this, like, when did Mega Man 9 come out? In, like, 2009?
2009.
2009? Yeah, so Mega Man 2 was about 20 years old at that point. We're getting really close to the point where a lot of N64 games are getting around that
Well,
age.
the N64 is 21, so...
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII turns 20 this year.
And it doesn't seem like we're getting as really any sorts of callbacks to those kinds of games, although we still keep on getting like the endless parade of 8-bit styled platformers.
Well, unless you're Mario 64 or Ocarina of Time.
The
Yeah, I think
unfortunate...
those are the only two that kind of get around.
The unfortunate thing with the N64 PlayStation 1 era is that while it was a highly experimental time when true classics were born and gaming went through a design revolution, it was also a highly experimental time when true clunkers were born and, well, nobody knew what the fuck they were doing with 3D game design.
But, like, between the PlayStation 1 and N64, throughout the years, throughout the anniversaries, what do you think got more representation? I would think the clear winner of that is the PS1.
Yeah, the PS1 won the game library war that generation. And
that's just
I mean, just kind of looking at it in general, I mean, we are getting the Crash 3 remixes.
yeah.
We're getting Yooka-Laylee, which is basically just Banjo-Kazooie.
But whenever you see a callback to a PlayStation N64 era franchise, you jumped into that cannonball twice, Ted. What are you doing?
I don't know.
But whenever you see a callback to those franchises, it's usually a callback that has hefty helpings of modern design conventions, because it kind of has to.
Yeah, it's I don't know, maybe this is me being just a little bit jealous, because I've always been like, oh, why doesn't anybody ever call back to my favorite games? I didn't grow up on all these, so me being a brat, as always. But
Yes, you are.
Hey, I'm still waiting for a proper sequel to Brave Friends of Musashi, and I don't count Samurai Legend Musashi.
Yeah. The
John, play Gurumin. It's almost the same game, but
What is that?
Gurumin, it's on like everything. You play a little girl with the drill, and the gameplay is very similar to Brave Fencer Musashi.
I'll look that up later. Send me a link later.
Okay.
is it one of those spiritual successor things, or is it just?
I don't
something
know if it's a spiritual successor. It's just very similar.
okay.
So, but yeah.
Like 8-bit and 16-bit era gameplay. Well, apart from some particularly early stuff, the game design, it didn't. It was perfectly and utterly, fine-tuned by the time those generations ended. Whereas I don't think the PlayStation 1 N64 era didn't get very far past the we finally know what we're doing phase before the next generation rolled around.
I think part of that has to do with honestly the controllers, because
Yeah.
they didn't because the N64 controller was the N64 controller.
It doesn't age very well.
And the PS1 controller, it started off with just kind of being an SNES controller.
It
And
wasn't
then
until
they-
really late in the PS1 generation that they even figured out how to do console shooters properly.
Yeah, so it's not like
If you're calling back to more 3D original stuff, you're more likely calling back to early GameCube, PS2, Xbox stuff.
Yeah.
but we're not really I don't think we're quite at that age yet. I mean, we're getting to the point where I think we're gonna expect a lot of people who like played Sonic Heroes as their first Sonic game are almost just about to go into college, I think, probably. So, yeah, it's interesting to... It's kind of like that, I guess, is that you see a lot of callbacks to, say, classic Sonic, when we're getting to the point where it's not... You can't just assume that everybody who knows Sonic knows him from the classic games, for example, because, like, the second most popular starting point is SA2,
with
and
Sonic,
that is...
With Sonic, it's less that... Well... It's less that they think that most people know him from the classics, and more that the adventure games never reached that level of universal acclaim and consistent polish.
Well, at first they did.
Well, I wouldn't even... Well, critically, I would say they definitely didn't...
You gotta remember, critically
at first they
Adventure
did,
2,
but, you know, the only thing...
They were praised as good games.
The only thing that I consistently heard was great was how dazzling the graphics
Sonic
were.
sure is blue.
Well, no, I'm talking more about people outside the gaming press because... Well, outside of gaming just generally in specific, because if I mention Sonic to, like, my younger brothers or to even from people from school... Like, actually, I remember this from way back when I was in marching band. Like, I brought up Sonic for some reason, and, like, one of the people in my marching band who didn't really play a lot of games was able to sing Live and Learn, like, right on the spot. So, you know, it like, critically, they're controversial, but a lot of people, you know, have fond memories of them, you know, potentially because they haven't played them in a while, you know, because, like, as much as I love Adventure 2, it has certainly not aged the best, but, you know,
yeah,
people still remember those games fondly, I suppose. It's
but there's a pretty big difference between that and the kind of recognizability that Sonic achieved in this when he was the Genesis mascot.
I would think that would depend on the age group of the person you're trying to cater.
Yeah, because people I'd say who are, like, I'd say 20 or younger know Sonic as a third party.
They know Green Knight Sonic.
Yeah.
Ooh, ow.
It always...
That was you rushing, Ted.
Yeah, that was me rushing. I think I also maybe misinputted and started doing the upwards attack instead of the dash attack.
Sure.
Well, no, it's still a mistake. Either way. I'm just trying to think through what mistake I made at the time. Getting whacked into the foreground, though, always sucks because it looks like it hurts, for one, and you almost always instantly lose your power, which is also awful. So, yeah. That's one... I forget what game started that, but... Games where you take one hit and lose your power instantly are always really aggravating because...
That was also your fault for rushing.
I could have made it.
Except you didn't.
The fact that it was so close to the end, I thought was...
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
One hit and you lose your power up, that's every Mario game I can think of.
Well, you always had a chance... Well, with Kirby, you always had a chance to get it back, but in, like, Kirby's Adventure, if you got hit, it would, like, pop out of you. Basically. And you could usually get it back unless if it, like, falls into a pit or into spikes or something. So, I can't remember what game... I know that by Kirby 64 you could take at least, like, 2 or 3 hits without losing your power. I couldn't tell you what the first game was, though. Maybe Superstar 2. I don't play that one a ton, so...
Taste my bells.
Well, you see, Kirby was enveloped himself with a bell there. That's great and all, but you don't... What we're not hearing is the massive ringing in his ears.
Kirby doesn't have
ears.
He has to?
Yeah, that's, I think, that's, you know, one cute thing. Like, Kirby has a guard command, and some of the abilities give him unique animations. Like, I think the guard with the bell has him hide inside of the bell, you know. So that's, I forgot what... Bell actually is probably my least favorite new power-up in the game. It's just kind of...
It's very not unique.
Yeah, it kind of... There's no, like, puzzles with it or whatever. You just kind of ring it, and it has some projectiles, and that's really about it. So, it's there. It's all right.
Yeah. That's the way I would describe it. I would just say it's there.
Yeah, because it's no Beetle or Archer.
Leaf.
Well,
or fighter.
Leaf was introduced in
I think Return to Dreamland.
Yeah, so that's
Oh, you're just talking about new power-ups.
yeah.
in the game.
The best new
Okay.
power-ups are easily Beetle and Archer, and I'm still really annoyed that they didn't bring Beetle back for.
What, doesn't Archer play like Cupid in that one Kirby game? I can't remember.
Oh, that's Amazing Mirror. Cupid's kind of strange. Cupid can't shoot really as fast, and you can float in midair without having to puff yourself up and hover, and you can shoot, but you move really slowly. If I remember correctly. I haven't played Amazing Mirror in a long time. But yeah, so Archer isn't, I guess, completely unique in that sense, but it's still one of the more fun ones to do, and actually, I think the game kind of missed an opportunity with Beetle by by making a new boss instead of having the boss be Bugsy from older games. Because that would have been cool to see him. Now, this upcoming boss here, I think his name is Pyribbit or something like that. He's a frog. He's considered to be one of the most annoying bosses in the game, but I actually don't think he's that bad. I think he's...
I reuse Fatty Puffer model.
Oh, that's funny. Kirby catches the rock, and the boss thinks Kirby threw it.
Yeah. This is like the one boss that was just, like, doing whatever. Well, yeah, I think all of them were basically doing whatever, and Taranza, like, corrupted them or, like, tricked
And
them or
then
whatever.
we moited them.
Yeah. Doop-de-doop-de-doo. Ah!
You know,
How does it
for
feel,
Yoshi-
Kirby? How does it feel?
Yeah. Oh, this sucks.
It sucks.
Yeah. It's fucking pun. I'm about to die.
Oh, man. Kirby, why do you have to be so cold like that?
Stop.
One thing that I miss from Nightmare in Dreamland is that when he had one of the ice power-ups in that game, he had the Ice Climber hood, and that was cute, and I miss it. I mean, I know that we are supposed to pretend that the Ice Climbers don't exist anymore because Sakurai said it to be so, but,
You're supposed to avoid the lava.
Well, okay, so here's actually an interesting thing. Ice actually got a buff in Planet Robobot. Like, they gave it new abilities, they just made it more useful overall. It's like one of the first times Ice has been supremely useful in a Kirby game to me. In that game, I believe the block with the ice, because they put you in a little ice shield. I believe the ice block in that game is a perfect block, like in like Leaf is, so I kind of got my games mixed up at that point and figured I could just block with the ice and be 100% okay.
Well, I figured that kind of makes sense considering you're ice and that's lava, so...
Yeah, it's been doing more damage to him than other ones. I don't know if they program weaknesses in this game. They probably don't. It's probably just designed in such a way that ice is supposed to be effective against him.
You just stabbed him with a giant rock.
Oh, I didn't have anything to do with that. He just happened to be there while the giant rocks were falling.
You stabbed him with a giant rock. Kirby, you monster.
Look, alright, I'm not saying that I put the rocks above that point for him to be stabbed with them, but they just happened to fall.
Now dance on top of your grave.
His grave's way back there. It's covered in lava. Ew, I'm not dancing over there. My feet
I'll
hurt.
dance near your grave.
Yeah, you gotta show some respect for the dead. So I'm not gonna piss on your grave, but I'm gonna piss on the sign for the graveyard.
But I will tap dance on top of it.
Oh man, you can tell that this is the final level of the game because it gets its own unique little jingle. And you can also tell that it's the longest world in the game by the fact that the first five worlds are 11 parts long, and the last world of the game is 6, meaning that it's a full third of the playthrough.
God damn.
Yeah. I mean, granted, it's got like 2 extra stages as opposed to every other stage having 1 extra stage and ending and credits and stuff, but still, yeah, Royal Road is the longest world in the game by far.